There comes a moment, sometimes years after a relationship has ended, when a narcissist encounters a truth they have spent their entire life avoiding: the recognition that they destroyed something irreplaceable. This is rarely a sudden moment of revelation or a dramatic epiphany. Instead, it arrives quietly, almost imperceptibly, like water slowly eroding stone. It creeps in during solitary moments, in the quiet spaces between obligations and distractions, when they are alone with themselves and can no longer escape introspection. After driving away someone who truly loved them, the narcissist does not simply stop seeking connection. They continue to find new partners, new sources of admiration, and new ways to fill the void they have created. At first, these relationships appear sufficient. They bring excitement, desire, and the temporary relief of not being alone with their own reflection. The narcissist feels validated, powerful, wanted, if only for a fleeting moment. These interactions feed their ego and confirm the self-narrative they have cultivated for years, that they are desirable, exceptional, and in control of every aspect of their emotional life. Yet over time, subtle cracks begin to appear. Conversations feel hollow, interactions lack genuine warmth, and intimacy seems performative rather than reciprocal. There is a persistent sense of absence, an invisible measure of something lost, something they cannot name. And slowly, in the quiet, unguarded moments, comparisons emerge. Memories surface, not of superficial moments or fleeting pleasure, but of depth, understanding, and authentic connection. They recall conversations that had meaning, moments that made them feel truly seen, glimpses of vulnerability met with acceptance, an emotional resonance that went far beyond surface-level admiration. At first, these recollections may provoke irritation or denial. Why dwell on the past? But eventually, the memories become impossible to dismiss. The narcissist begins to see, with an uncomfortable clarity, that what they once had was unlike any other relationship. It was unique, profound, and real. And then comes the quiet, unbearable recognition. The person they drove away didn't love the facade they presented. They loved the broken, fragmented, and vulnerable person beneath it. And that love could not be replaced by any subsequent partner, no matter how beautiful, accomplished, or devoted. It was a connection that required courage, patience, and empathy, and it was destroyed, not by circumstance, but by the narcissist's own choices. This creeping realization is the first step in a long, painful journey. It marks the moment when the narcissist can no longer entirely hide behind the armor of ego, defense, and rationalization. For the first time, they confront a truth they have avoided all their life. They lost something precious, and the weight of that loss will follow them quietly, persistently, for years to come. As the narcissist reflects, a more painful awareness begins to take shape. They start to recognize the depth of the love they destroyed. It is no longer enough to feel temporarily admired or desired. Memories of their former partner surface, vivid and unrelenting. They remember conversations that went beyond small talk, moments where connection was real and effortless, where vulnerability was met with acceptance rather than judgment. These memories are not merely nostalgia, they are evidence of something extraordinary, something rare that cannot be replicated. They begin to see that what they once had was different from any subsequent relationship. It wasn't built on infatuation, superficial attraction, or convenience. It was rooted in authenticity, trust, and understanding. The person they destroyed didn't love a performance or a carefully curated image. They loved a fractured, messy human being underneath. They loved not despite the flaws and wounds, but alongside them. And in destroying that love, the narcissist shattered the very thing they had most sought to possess: a connection that could transcend the ego, a love that was unconditional, real, and enduring. This recognition is particularly devastating because it forces the narcissist to confront the limitations of everything that followed. Every new partner, no matter how beautiful, accomplished, or devoted, becomes a reminder of what cannot be recovered. No relationship can replicate the intimacy and understanding that was once freely given. Every subsequent connection feels incomplete, hollow, and performative, by comparison. The narcissist begins to realize that no amount of validation, admiration, or attention can ever substitute for the love they destroyed. The gravity of this realization grows in quiet moments, when they are alone, when distractions fall away, when there is nothing left to inflate the ego. It becomes painfully clear that authentic love cannot be faked or borrowed. It cannot be manufactured through charm, manipulation, or surface-level engagement. It is only achieved when two people meet fully, vulnerably, and with mutual recognition of each other's humanity. The narcissist had access to that kind of love once, and they let it slip away. This awareness is also humbling. For the first time, the narcissist might see themselves through another's eyes, not as the desirable in-control figure they always projected, but as the person who sabotaged intimacy, rejected connection, and prioritized the false self over the real. The person who once loved them completely did not simply offer affection. They offered understanding, patience, and presence. And in the narcissist's path of destruction, all of it was lost. Recognizing this depth of lost love marks the next step in their painful journey. It is no longer only about what was lost externally, but about the internal truth that genuine connection, once destroyed, cannot be rebuilt. And in that understanding lies a quiet, inescapable weight, a weight they will carry indefinitely. As the narcissist's reflection deepens, the painful truth begins to crystallize. The destruction of genuine love was not an isolated incident. It was part of a recurring pattern. They start to see that the same cycle repeats in every significant relationship: idealization, intense attention, emotional closeness, followed by devaluation, criticism, betrayal, and eventual discard. At first, it is easier to externalize blame, to convince themselves that their partner failed to meet expectations, was too sensitive, or misunderstood them. Yet as these patterns continue across multiple relationships, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. The common denominator is them. This realization carries a sting that is both humbling and destabilizing. The narcissist begins to acknowledge that the person who truly loved them, who saw through defenses, tolerated their fears, and offered unconditional care, was not the problem. They recognized that their former partner's perceived flaws were, in fact, responses to the destabilizing influence of the narcissist. The partner's frustrations, withdrawals, or emotional distance were not signs of failure. They were natural, necessary reactions to someone who could not sustain intimacy or trust. With this recognition comes a dual weight: grief for the lost love and accountability for their own repeated choices. They see that every act of betrayal, every moment of emotional withdrawal, every subtle manipulation stemmed from fear, self-protection, and an inability to tolerate vulnerability. They realized that they had access to a rare and profound connection, a connection that could have endured, grown, and deepened, but they systematically undermined it. The narcissist also begins to notice the stark contrast between this lost relationship and the ones that followed. While subsequent partners might be attractive, kind, or attentive, these relationships lack the depth, empathy, and understanding that the one true love offered. Every failed relationship becomes evidence of the same internal truth. The person who could have provided unconditional love is gone because they themselves destroyed the possibility. This recognition is particularly painful because it strips away the comfort of the ego. For years, the narcissist may have lived in a self-constructed narrative of charm, power, and control, believing that relationships ended due to circumstances beyond their influence. Now they are forced to confront the unvarnished truth. They are the architect of their isolation, and their actions created the void that no one else can fill. Even as rationalizations attempt to reassert themselves, a deep, undeniable awareness lingers. The love they lost was rare, genuine, and irreplaceable. Understanding the pattern of destruction is the first step toward internal accountability, a recognition that, unlike superficial admiration, authentic connection cannot be recreated through ego or performance. The weight of this realization is heavy, and it marks a turning point in their introspection. They begin to confront not just the loss, but the responsibility for it. Eventually, The narcissist reaches a stage where life strips away distractions and illusions, leaving them face to face with an uncomfortable truth. In moments of true need, there is no one to call unconditionally. Illness, loss, or profound existential crises expose the hollowness of relationships built on admiration, convenience, or fleeting desire. Contacts may exist, yet when the moment arrives for genuine presence and support, they vanish. The person who would have been there, the one who loved them authentically, without conditions, is gone, permanently unreachable, because of choices the narcissist made long ago. This realization hits with a subtle but relentless force. Surrounded by people, the narcissist can still feel profoundly alone. Every casual connection, every superficial friendship, every transactional relationship reinforces the emptiness left by a love destroyed. The weight of isolation is amplified because it is self-created. It is not the result of circumstance or misfortune. The narcissist begins to understand that the rare, irreplaceable love they once had was not only lost, it was actively forsaken, rejected, and destroyed by their own hands. Time magnifies this awareness. As mortality becomes undeniable, the narcissist confronts a terrifying silent question. Will they die having ever been truly loved? They look back at a lifetime of relationships and see patterns of performance, calculation, and conditional support. They see a landscape of fleeting admiration and hollow praise, punctuated by moments of short-lived passion or convenience. And in this reflection, the void left by genuine love looms large. The awareness of mortality and the impossibility of reclaiming lost love creates a profound internal pressure. The narcissist begins to realize that no charm, no status, no new relationship can replicate what was once freely given. Authentic connection cannot be manufactured. It cannot be reconstructed once destroyed. The son who loved them fully, is gone, because the narcissist's defenses, their compulsive need to maintain a false self, and their repeated choices ensured it. This section of realization is heavy, quiet, and relentless. It is not accompanied by dramatic epiphany, but by a slow creeping awareness of consequence. In the solitude of reflection, the narcissist sees the truth. They are alone, not because they failed to attract others, but because they failed to preserve the one relationship that mattered most. The depth of that loss and the permanence of its absence mark a turning point in understanding. The first time they confront the real cost of their choices in stark, unvarnished terms. In rare, undefended moments of clarity, the narcissist confronts the unvarnished truth. They are the architect of their own isolation. Every betrayal, every act of cruelty, every subtle devaluation was not the result of circumstance. It was a choice, a defense mechanism rooted in fear and an inability to tolerate vulnerability. They see that the person who loved them fully did so despite their flaws, not because of superficial charm or performance. That love was authentic, rare, and irreplaceable, and they destroyed it. Even as rationalizations and defenses rush back, the weight of this realization lingers. They may tell themselves the victim story, reconstruct excuses, or blame circumstances, but deep down, beneath the armor, they know the truth. They chose the false self over genuine connection. Every alternative path, kindness, care, fidelity, was available, yet they repeatedly prioritized ego, self-preservation, and control over love. This recognition is devastating because it cannot be undone. Unlike temporary losses, the love they destroyed cannot be reclaimed. No amount of charm, success, or validation can replace it. The narcissist may continue living surrounded by people, but never again will they experience the depth of connection they once rejected, the one person capable of sustaining intimacy, of seeing them fully and loving them anyway, is gone forever. Ultimately, this is the narcissist's rarest and most painful lesson. Defending the false self carries a cost that cannot be measured merely in regret or longing. It is a permanent scar, a reminder of choices made, opportunities squandered, and the irreplaceable love that will never return. In confronting this truth, they are left with a heavy awareness of mortality, isolation, and the profound consequences of their own actions. A cautionary tale about the high price of self-deception and the fragility of genuine human connection.